Hello and welcome back to The Life She Built. Today we are digging into business, but not in the traditional business strategy sense. We're going to talk about an inevitable part of being an entrepreneur, and that is the idea of business mistakes. In particular, I will share some of the biggest mistakes that I've made so that you don't have to. And if I can save even just one of you from even one of these, then I think I've done my job here. We're going to talk about the real and often sneaky ones that can catch up to you, and man, did they ever get me. These mistakes cost me a lot of money, they cost me a lot of time, they cost me peace, and they honestly took me years to fully understand. So, I've been in business now for over a decade, and while there are a lot of things in business that I am really proud of and things that I would repeat again, there are also a lot of things that I would do very, very differently if I was starting over and if I was to give somebody advice. So, if you're building a business right now, my hope is that maybe you can learn these lessons a little bit faster than I did and know what to look out for. Okay, let's dig into it. Mistake number one for me was not paying attention to my numbers. I will say that this is one of the most common mistakes that business owners, especially in creative industries, make. For years, I proudly proclaimed, I don't do this for the money. I do it because I love it. I honestly said it all the time. And while I do still understand what I meant by that, I've realized how damaging that mindset can be because what we continuously say really becomes our reality. And when you're constantly telling yourself that money doesn't matter, you actually stop paying attention to it. You stop measuring it, you stop managing it, and you stop treating it as an important part of running a business. So, for a lot of years, even though I have a business degree and I know this stuff, this is not something that I struggle with. I don't struggle with numbers. Let's just be clear there. Some people do, I never did. But it was a mindset. So, I wasn't tracking profitability the way that I should have been. I was not looking at my margins close enough, or sometimes at all, to be honest. I wasn't always asking whether the work I was doing was actually producing the results that I wanted financially. Now, there will always be some projects that are more of a passion project, and that's okay. But not every project, especially when it's taking time away from you in your actual life, is a passion project. So the irony is that not caring about money doesn't actually make you a better business owner. It actually makes you a worse one. Because to me, it's still definitely not my biggest value in life by any means. But the truth is, businesses need money. Money creates options. Money creates freedom. And money allows you to serve your clients well. It allows you to support your family or to have more fun with it. It allows you to dream and it allows you to create opportunities for others. So today, like I said, I definitely still don't believe that money is the only reason to build a business, and it's certainly not the only reason I have one. But I absolutely believe that it deserves a seat at the table. And it's something that if I was to go back, I would implement as being a key measure of my business success early on. Mistake number two was undercharging and overworking. And it goes along with the money piece. For a long time, I believed that hard work could save almost anything. If something wasn't working, my solution was usually just work harder, take on more, do more, stay later, answer more emails, give more, please people, take on all these passion projects that I was not charging enough for, but overworking and not measuring properly. And eventually I realized that many of my problems weren't actually work ethic problems, they were pricing problems. I wasn't charging appropriately for the value and the responsibility and the expertise I was bringing. So instead of fixing the pricing, I just kept increasing the workload. Because remember, I was not measuring money properly. So I was like, I probably should have more of it, so then I'll work more. And that's actually a very, very dangerous cycle. Because eventually you reach a point where there simply are not enough hours left to sell. And the harder you work, the more trapped you feel. And then you bring on more people and then you owe them more money. And it's just this vicious cycle. Which brings us to mistake number three, and that's making decisions from scarcity. This one is huge. Again, it's very common in entrepreneurship. For myself, this looked like taking clients that I should not have taken. I accepted projects that I had no business accepting in terms of what I enjoy to do. I didn't take any of this because it was right for me. I took it because I was scared. And at the time, I don't even think that I really realized that I was scared. I was scared that there wouldn't be another inquiry. I was scared that another opportunity wouldn't come. I was scared that saying no would create a gap in a relationship or a gap in my workflow or a gap in looking a certain way. Scarcity makes almost everything look like a good idea. That's the problem. You can convince yourself to do anything. But not every opportunity is actually your opportunity. Some projects drain you, some clients are not aligned, and some revenue is really expensive revenue. It costs you time, energy, effort just to have revenue. But again, if you're not tracking your numbers, you're not actually making any profit off it. The worst part of this for me is that in my gut, I always knew that it wasn't the right call, like truly always. But I did it anyway. I convinced myself out of it. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned here is that saying yes to the wrong thing often prevents you from saying yes to the right thing. When you're saying yes to the wrong things, you are closing off the opportunity to say yes to something better that will come along. Mistake number 4 is holding on too long. And I have done this one repeatedly. As a human being, I am often loyal to a fault. I'm incredibly persistent, consistent, and I don't give up. But sometimes letting go is exactly the thing to do. It's not a failure, but it's out of awareness of what the next move is. So some of these things that are good about me, like being persistent, etc., have actually made me hold on to business models and services and systems and even people who are no longer the best fit for my business, no longer the best fit for my life, and in turn, my mental health. I think that many entrepreneurs know something isn't working long before they're willing to admit it. So we tell ourselves, we've already invested so much. We've already spent so much time. Let's just give it another few months. Let's just try this one last thing. And sometimes persistence is a powerful thing. It is what moves the needle in business. But sometimes it becomes avoidance. And the longer you hang on to something that isn't working, the longer you delay finding what does. And I think being able to see the difference where persistence is healthy and where persistence is a holdback is a key skill to develop as an entrepreneur. That is one of the hardest skills to do in business. It's knowing when to keep pushing and when to let go. And I'm a pusher, so I would often push way past the point of needing to. Mistake number 5 was not having a real schedule. Again, such a common one for entrepreneurs. For years, I thought that flexibility was the goal. And I just love telling myself, I can work wherever, I can work whenever. I don't have a boss, I have freedom. But what I didn't realize is that all this flexibility that I was so proudly proclaiming actually came without any structure, and that created chaos. Because if you can work absolutely anytime, you often work all the time. So I would answer emails at night. I worked on weekends. I squeezed in work literally in every available gap. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, that still will happen, but that can't be your normal operating system. For myself, it wasn't because the business actually always required it. Again, sometimes it does, and that's okay, but that's not the norm. For me, it was because I had never actually really built a proper boundary around what my schedule looks like. But now I truly understand that structure creates freedom, and it also creates a certain snowball effect to the success of your business. Mistake number 6, again, such a common one. I know I keep saying that, but it's hiring when I was on fire. This one is a little bit embarrassing to admit, given that I had years of experience as an HR consultant and HR professional prior to having my own company, yet that the shoemaker's children concept didn't spare me on this one. So while I knew better, I did not do better. There were times in my business when I was absolutely drowning and I was like, I need help immediately, right now. So I would hire because I was completely overwhelmed. I would hire not because I had a really clear strategy, not because I had really clearly defined roles, and it's not because I really knew what success looked like. I just needed relief and I needed it now. I needed it yesterday. I needed it a month ago. So the problem is that this desperation rarely ever produces great hiring decisions. Today, I believe that hiring should happen before the emergency. And I shouldn't just say today. I've always known that and believed it. I just didn't practice it. So again, hiring should happen before the emergency. It should be a strategy. Once you're on fire, it is incredibly difficult to make thoughtful decisions, and it is incredibly difficult to be the leader that an employee needs to say, here's our strategy, here's what your role is going to look like, here's how we're going to get there. Speaking of employees, that leads me to mistake number 7, and it's treating employees like they are friends. This is another one where I knew better, but I didn't do better. And this one is really nuanced for me because I genuinely really care about people, and I still struggle with this one. But there is a difference between being really caring as a leader and being overly familiar. There is a difference between kindness and blurred boundaries. There is a difference between a true friendship and leadership. And sometimes, in fact, often, I got too close. I shared way too much with my employees. I treated employees more like peers than team members. And while that feels really good in the moment, it can actually create a lot of confusion later. In particular, if you're a leader that's currently going through something and you share that with them, it really creates a shaky ground and a shaky foundation for your employees. And then they start to lose trust and respect for you. Difficult conversations eventually do have to happen, and performance conversations have to happen. Expectations need to be communicated. Certain accountability has to exist. And those conversations become much harder when boundaries were never established in the first place. And when you are a leader that appears as though they are not confident in what's happening in the business right now. Because employees can get way too close and they can start to have say in things that aren't actually theirs to decide. They then start to have expectations of friendship rather than an employer-employee relationships, and that becomes really challenging. On the flip side, as a boss, I subconsciously, it's what I know now, but I subconsciously expected the same loyalty in business as I would expect from a friend in my personal relationships. This is a difficult one because nobody necessarily was at fault here, but ultimately it was my role as the leader to set the tone and to set those boundaries, and I did not always do that. So I've learned that as a great leader, you can be warm, you can be compassionate, you can care deeply and be funny and honest and relatable, and there doesn't have to be this big differentiation of hierarchy in terms of importance, but leadership does require a certain level of distance. This is something that I still struggle with because I love connection, but it's one that I'm getting better at. And I think that for me, this will forever be a challenge as a business leader. Mistake number 8, and our last mistake for now, was listening to everyone else instead of listening to myself. And this is one of the biggest ones. It was assuming that because someone else had an opinion, that I should always seriously consider it. Employees had opinions, contractors we would bring in for temporary work, friends, family, clients, mentors, everyone had an opinion, everyone had advice. And because I value connection relationships so much, I actually just spent years collecting these opinions. So the problem wasn't that I didn't listen to them. The problem was that sometimes I listened more closely to other people than I listened to myself. And someone should tell me that I should offer a new service and I would consider it. Somebody should tell me that I should grow my team because they, quote, that's not my job, I don't want to do it. So I would do it. Someone would tell me to lower my pricing and I would consider it, or I would try to come up with a new system that would, allow for a lower price. I would always listen to these things, whether it's change my systems, expand the business, shrink the business, everything under the sun. I listened to other people and I didn't fully know what I wanted. Do I want to expand? Do I want to shrink? Do I want to pivot? Do I want to stand the course? And before long, I had a room full of opinions and very little clarity as to what's actually the right move here for the business and for myself. What I've learned is that there is a big difference between seeking input and outsourcing your judgment. I love still hearing from other people, but I now keep my own judgment and what I think is the right thing to do at the forefront of all of it. Because at the end of the day, the employee goes home. At the end of the day, the employee can give their notice and you're stuck with that decision. The contractor goes home, their term is up. The consultant goes home, the client, their contract ends. But you're the one who has to live with the consequences of that decision. And I will say that I have noticed that many of the decisions that I regret the most were the decisions that I knew weren't right. I felt it and I questioned it. My intuition was always trying to tell me something, but I would always talk myself out of it because someone else sounded more confident than I felt, or again, that scarcity mindset would kick in and I would make these decisions that I knew were not right. So I've learned that confidence as a leader is not the same as being correct about something. So today I still ask for advice. I still seek feedback, and I really still do believe that there's so much wisdom in learning from others. I'm a big believer in that. But I have now stopped assuming, again, it was very subconscious, that everyone else's voice should be louder than my own because nobody understands your business better than you do. Not your employees, not contractors, certainly not clients, not even your spouse. Nobody carries the responsibility that you carry, and nobody sees all the pieces that you see. Some of the best decisions that I've ever made were the ones that everybody else questioned. And some of the worst decisions I've made, honestly, were the ones where I kept everyone else's opinion and happiness ahead of my own. So if there's one lesson that I wish I had learned earlier, it's this: gather opinions, listen carefully, but don't abandon yourself and what you know to be true in the process. So, what's interesting about all of this is that none of these mistakes happened because I was lazy or because I was just coasting. None of them happened because I didn't care. Most of them actually happened because I cared too much. Most of them happened because I just wanted the best. And I wanted to help people. I wanted to create opportunities. I wanted to be generous. And I wanted to succeed. I really wanted to build something meaningful and something that other people were excited about too. But good intentions don't automatically create good business decisions. Sometimes the best business decisions are the hardest ones to make. Experience creates good business decisions. And if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it would be this: pay attention to the numbers, charge appropriately, make decisions from alignment and not from fear. Let go sooner. Create structure in your business. Hire strategically. Don't hire when you're on fire. Lead with compassion, but do not abandon leadership boundaries. Because building a successful business isn't just about working hard. So many people would have successful businesses if that was the only requirement. It's about making decisions that allow the business, and more importantly, you, to thrive for the long term. So I hope that shedding some light on my business mistakes will help you to avoid some of these, or like I said, at least recognize them sooner. So I'm curious to know, do any of these resonate with you? If they do, head over to Instagram at The Life She Built and just shoot me a DM and let's talk about it. I look forward to chatting with you next week.